All right, so now that we have done the hypothesis test, we're going to go ahead and construct the confidence interval. So all we have to do, now that all the information is already put in, you can go back to the previous video if you want to see how to do that. All we're going to do is change our test to confidence interval. And this is a 95% confidence interval. And you can see that we have our difference here. We have our upper bound and our lower bound. And usually if we have a one-sided test, you're usually going to want to double your level of significance. So if we change it down to 90, and how we get that is, see, our alpha was 0.05. If you times that by 2, we get 0.1. And if we do 1 minus 0.1, that gives us the 0.9 or 90%. So that's where the 90% confidence interval would come from. And if we look at our confidence interval, we can see that 0 is not in the interval. So I'm going to come down here and explain this. So if 0 is in the interval, that means there is no evidence the two samples are different. If 0 is not in the interval, there is evidence the samples are different. So in this case, both of these are greater than 0. 0 is not in the interval, so that means there is evidence that P1 is greater than P2. So that's what it tells us. There is evidence that the second sample, the first sample is greater than the second. If 0 was in this interval, what it would be telling us is the sample proportions are too close together. That means we do not see any difference between the two groups. Because what this is telling us is the difference of proportions. This is telling you how big the difference is. So this tells us that the difference is about, moving this over, about 1% to 10% difference. So not a big difference, but it is telling us that there is a difference. If 0 was in the interval, it would tell us there's 0 difference. So that is how you make your decision. This decision will always match your decision from your hypothesis test. So if your hypothesis test says you reject the null, the confidence interval will also say reject the null, 0 is not in the interval. So that is how you make confidence intervals for two simple proportions and how you make your conclusion with these confidence intervals.